Hey everyone, Brian Porter here. Welcome back to our Dear Guitar Industry series. Today we're going to be talking about modelers versus real amps and kind of a little bit of a touch on that subject. Now, this could be probably 7 different videos in one, 7 different podcasts in one. It's a crazy topic. It's something that I kind of feel like is pretty polarizing sometimes, and so I'll get into that in just a minute. But we're talking today, as we do most podcasts and most shows, we're talking about our pickup chooser. Simple form you can go fill out. We're going to include a link, whether it's on the Podbean page, it's on whatever streaming service you're listening to the podcast version, or here on YouTube as well. We're going to link to the pickup chooser. That's a way that you can put in your information. You can fill out what you have, what guitar you have, what gear you have, and we'll match up a set of pickups to you. We'll find you a good option that fits from our lineup. So it's a really fun form for us. We get them in, and we get to see pictures of your guitar if you choose to attach one. We get to see what pedals you're playing if you want to show us or tell us what pedals you're playing, and then we get to talk about gear. We get to talk about your needs and what you're shooting for with your tone. And so that's a really cool way that we help people find their sound, find their better sound, and find their upgraded sound. So enough of that. We're going to get into the topic today: amps versus modelers. Versus sounds like I'm gonna argue a case. I'm gonna highlight a couple of things I like about each side of the coin here with the modelers and with the real amps, and maybe talk about some I'm gonna probably end up sounding fairly neutral, like the gear reviews on the magazines, where they kind of don't say anything harsh. They kind of just say something like, well, if you don't like the color of the pedal, then buy something else. They don't want to say something too harsh, and I have a love for both sides of the equation. I'll get that out right away. I love different modelers. I love real amps, and there's definitely pros and cons to each one. So I'm just going to hit this. Again, this is with these series, the Dear Guitar Industry, we're trying to keep them under 10 minutes, and this is another one of those topics that I think is going to be pushing 10 minutes. I don't want to waste your time. I just want to jump into it. So here we go. Modelers. Let's start with modelers, because I think that'll be just the first thing that I'll address, and then I'll kind of go into some things that I use, the things that we use here in the shop, and then as well as some other ones out there. Amp modeling is come a long way. We all know that. We all have tried the amp modelers in the early days. Remember some of the early, I think of the Pod from Line 6, and even some of the other early kind of attempts to be an amp, and most of them did not sound very good. They did not really nail the tone or the feel of an amp, and the modelers have come a long way. Currently in the shop, we use quite a bit a Fractal FM3. So that is used for direct recording for some videos. When we have a noisy day, we can direct record videos. When the machine's running and all that stuff, we can still make videos with pretty much little or no noise at all. And that's pretty handy, because sometimes we're building pickups and making content, and it gets a little crazy. I particularly like the FM3 a little bit more than, say, like the Line 6. I haven't tried the Neural one. I haven't tried the Kemper. I think I've heard the Kemper a little bit, but I haven't tried some of the other main flagship modelers that have the amp sims and all the pedals included. There's obviously now a ton of amps in a box. There's the DSM Simplifier. There's the Strymon Iridium, which Marco has in the shop. He uses that quite a bit for kind of silent apartment type recordings, recording tracks and sending it to the band. So there's the Iridium, which is pretty popular. I've seen the Tonex. Seen some other things that have come out that basically kind of replace that real amp in your rig. So some people would need a fly rig, and they need just an FM3 or FM9 or a Helix, and they want to put that down, and they just want to play their gig. And that's really helped a lot of musicians carry a lot less stuff. If I'm using an FM3 and I'm playing out somewhere, I just have to grab it, and I have to bring a guitar and a bag, and with that in there, and a couple cables, and that's it. There's not a fancy pedal board. There's not power supplies. There's not all these other things that I have to bring. So that's one of the things I do like about modelers. I like that I have a ton of effects inside the box. I know we're talking mostly about amps, but if I have a ton of effects in the box, I can probably dial in something really good that will scratch that itch and maybe save myself some money if I want a Univibe effect. I'm not going to go buy a boutique Univibe necessarily. I might just find it in the modeler and kind of hear what I like about it, or maybe it just scratches the itch enough to save me that money. So that's one thing I like about modelers. Before we get to the real amps, I want to know what you guys are using. So whether it's a real amp, whether it's a modeler, whether it's both, let me know in the comments what you're using. So if you're listening to this on the Podbean or any other podcast platforms, head to our YouTube video for this topic and let me know your thoughts, because I would love to hear what you're using. I'm always open to interesting and creative gear. I think the efficiency of the modelers, going straight XLR into the house is super nice, super convenient, fairly consistent in terms of signal. Haven't had a lot of issues with the modelers. I know some people may have had issues with different modelers. So that's what I like about modelers. I really like the way they do that specific thing. And in my case with the FM3, I've got all the pedals and all the different things I can use. All right, so jumping into real amps. Now, there's nothing like real amp in a room, blowing air, tubes, and all that stuff. So I've definitely not replaced that, and I still have a strong love for that. I just did a couple of recording projects where I got to use real amps, and it felt so good. It felt like it was alive again, and we have the trainer, the old trainer that you might have seen on videos. I have a couple Tyler amps, the JT14s that I really, really love, kind of Princeton inspired amps. And if you've seen any shots from our showroom, we've got a bunch of weird amps. Some regular, like an old Blues Deluxe from Fender. We've got a PV 5150. We've got an old Epiphone amp and a red knob Fender Super 60, and kind of just a weird collection of amps that we sort of acquired over the years. And there's something about each of them that I just love, and I love to plug them in and just hear that sound. I love to hear the responsiveness of playing the guitar and hearing it in the amp. And so there's really nothing that sounds like that. I think the modelers have come a long way, and they get to a point where I'm happy with what they do for the specific situation. But I really love an amp. I think everyone kind of loves a good amp, but sometimes you don't have the opportunity to just turn up an amp. We've got neighbors in our business park here that thankfully they've been really, really cool. They've been really friendly, but we're not going to turn the tube amps up and kind of mess up everyone else's business. So we try to do that on the off hours and kind of turn everything up. But I love just shoving a drive pedal through a big clean tube amp. That's kind of been my thing from day one, is really, really looking for that big glassy Fender clean. And I love everything about amps. So I'm definitely I'm kind of down the middle. Like I said, I really like both. I really think there's times and places for both. The amp I want to use is not small, and it's very inconvenient to carry around sometimes. And so it's nice to just pull out a modeler and go if it works in that situation. But I love just kind of that feel. We had a project where we were sitting in a circle, and we had real amps, and we kind of just had the jam in a circle thing. And I hadn't done that in a while. And that felt really, really good. It felt good to just move some air and just to hear the responsiveness and be able to listen to the touch sensitivity of the amp and kind of the warmth of an amp essentially. But so where do you guys land on this? What are some things? Do you absolutely hate one or the other? Are you done with tube amps? Are you done with modelers? Where do you kind of land? I know this is going to be quite the interesting section of comments probably. But I'd love to hear what you're using. Again, this is more about gear. It's more about what you're using and how it works for your solution, because each player is different. Each situation is different. And so some of these things may be able to plug and play better in a situation for you. And that's ultimately up to you to decide what works for you. And that would be my last thought, is just to encourage you to branch out and find your own path, whether it is tubes, whether it's solid state, whether it's modeling. There's going to be a solution that works specifically for the gig that you're playing, for the recording project that you're doing. And thankfully, we're living in a time where there's so many great pieces of gear out there right now. So I would love, as a guitar player, to know what you're using and why you like it. Leave that in the comments on the YouTube video. Thank you guys so much for watching this Dear Guitar Industry series. And also, if you have suggestions for topics for this series, leave them in the comments below. If you love our thoughts on specific things in the industry, we've got probably 6 or 7 more of these queued up, ready to record over the next week or so. So you'll be seeing more of these coming out. And thank you guys so much for this support. Appreciate it.